I had rehearsed every step of this day like a performance I never wanted to give. My heels struck the marble aisle with mechanical grace. My veil clung to my lips as if trying to silence the scream I wasn't allowed to release. Cameras flashed, guests whispered. Somewhere in the air between incense and roses, my future was being bought and sold like a corporate merger. And then I saw him. That wasn't the man from the file. The man waiting at the altar was taller, broader, sharper. Not the clean-cut banker my father's team had vetted weeks ago. No, this man had danger written into the shadows of his tailored suit. His jaw was too tense, his mouth unsmiling, his steel gray eyes unreadable as they locked onto mine with the weight of a trap snapping shut. I froze mid-step. My mother's fingers touched the small of my back, coaxing me forward. "Scarlett, don't make a scene," she whispered like a warning. My father had signed the marriage contract to save our dying company, an arranged union with a wealthy investor's second son, a name I barely remembered, a face I had never seen. But I remembered the Wolfe family, and I recognized him now. Grayson Wolfe, CEO of Wolfe Industries, a man whose acquisitions gutted entire corporations without remorse, a man who once tried to buy out our family legacy and was denied. Now I was standing in front of him, in white, bound to him by law, and the contract had already been filed. "I believe you're supposed to say I do," he said, voice low and smooth like silk over steel. I clenched the bouquet until my knuckles went white. "You're not who I was promised." His lips curved in the faintest ghost of a smirk. "No, Scarlett, but I'm exactly who you need." The ceremony moved like a blur. Vows were spoken, rings exchanged. My signature sat inked in legal permanence on papers I'd never seen. My family smiled. Grayson's lawyers lingered like wolves in suits. When the limousine door closed behind us, silence wrapped around me like a second skin. "Why?" I asked, staring straight ahead. He loosened his tie with an elegant flick of his wrist. "Your family owes me." This wasn't part of the deal. I rewrote the deal. I turned to him, fury flickering behind my composure. "What do you want from me?" His eyes met mine, cold, calculating, but beneath that was something else, something I couldn't name. "You'll find out," he said, "but for now, you're my wife." The Wolfe penthouse wasn't a home, it was a throne room. Black marble floors, silver-veined walls, windows stretching from floor to ceiling as if the sky were nothing but a backdrop to his power. The moment I stepped inside, I understood. This place wasn't designed for comfort, it was designed for control. Grayson didn't offer a tour. He didn't say welcome. He just watched as I stepped out of my heels and let my hand skim the velvet arm of a sofa that probably cost more than my college tuition. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked, voice low. He poured himself a drink, the crystal decanter glinting under chandelier light. "Since your father refused my offer to buy your family's company." I turned toward him. "So this is revenge?" "It's business," he replied. "The contract was legal, the name was mine. You signed it." "You switched the name, that's fraud." He took a sip, eyes never leaving mine. "That's survival." A beat passed. The silence between us stretched like a wire pulled too tight. He moved toward me, not fast, not threatening, just deliberate. "You're angry," he said. "No, I'm humiliated." He stopped inches from me. "You still wear the ring." I looked down at the diamond on my finger. The weight of it mocked me. I hadn't even noticed. "You don't get to play husband," I said quietly. "You're the man who tricked me into being sold." His jaw flexed, something dark flickering behind his steel eyes. "And you're the woman who signed herself away without reading the fine print." We stared at each other, not talking, not blinking, just breathing in the tension. Finally, he turned, voice calm. "Your room is across the hall. You'll find clothes in your size." "My room?" "Yes. This isn't a romance novel, Scarlett. We won't be sharing a bed." His words landed like a slap I hadn't expected. Not because I wanted to share his bed, but because part of me wanted him to want that. "I won't be your pawn," I said. He walked to the window, looking out over the city like a god surveying his kingdom. "No," he murmured, "you'll be my queen." Later, alone in a room I didn't choose, surrounded by silk sheets and silence, I stared at the door between us. Closed. Locked? I didn't try it. Because what scared me more than being trapped was what might happen if I opened it. The next morning, I didn't knock. I walked into his kitchen like I belonged, because if I was going to be trapped in this arrangement, I'd claim every inch of my cage. The space was like him, dark, cold, expensive. Black granite counters, matte steel appliances, and not a speck of warmth. Except the coffee, fresh, already poured. 2 cups, one for him, one for me. I didn't ask how he knew I liked it black. Grayson stood at the island in a tailored navy suit, no tie, sleeves rolled up, hair still damp from the shower. He didn't look at me as I sat. "You didn't sleep," he said. "How would you know? You're wearing yesterday's silence." I stiffened, then reached for the cup. "Tell me the real reason you did this." "Power," he said flatly. "Control." I stared at him. "That's all?" He finally met my eyes. "What more is there?" The question sliced deeper than it should have. I had spent my life learning how to survive in boardrooms and backstabbing fundraisers. But this man, this marriage, was a new battlefield. And I was unarmed. "Is this where you tell me your tragic origin story?" I asked, voice sharp. "The wounded billionaire with trust issues?" He smirked. "You think I'm predictable? I think you're cliché." He stepped closer, too close. "You think I married you for pity?" he said, voice low. This wasn't charity. This was strategy. His words were cruel, but his breath was warm, too close to mine. "Then tell me your next move," I whispered. He didn't. Instead, he brushed past me, leaving the scent of bergamot and control in his wake. Later that day, my phone buzzed with a calendar alert I hadn't set. 2 p.m., dress fitting. Location, Vera Cavalli Private Suite. I frowned. "Grayson?" I called, stepping into his study. He didn't look up from his laptop. "You have a gala to attend tonight, as my wife. I'm not your accessory." "No," he said, eyes flicking to me. "You're my partner." "In what? Corporate espionage?" He closed the laptop slowly. "In public, we play perfect. In private, we stay out of each other's way." I crossed my arms. "You really think this will work?" He stood, walked to me with quiet menace. "Scarlett," he said, voice like a blade against silk. "You've already lost your name, your company, your choices. What do you have left to lose?" My voice didn't shake when I answered. "Myself." And for the first time, something flickered in his eyes that looked almost like regret. Almost. The dress fit like it had been sewn onto my skin. Deep emerald silk, high slit, open back. Not a single zipper out of place, not a single inch left to the imagination. Grayson's assistant had called it an elegant statement. I called it a warning shot. The gala was held in a glass atrium overlooking the bay. Glittering chandeliers, champagne towers, and billionaire smiles so sharp you could slit a throat on them. Cameras followed us from the moment we stepped out of the car. Grayson didn't offer his arm. He offered command. "Smile," he murmured through his teeth. I did, but not for him. Inside, he led and I followed, or at least that's how it looked. In truth, I was watching everything. Every glance, every whisper. I grew up in rooms like this, trained to read the smallest shifts in posture and power. But I had never walked into one with a wolf on my arm. "You're quieter than usual," he said as we paused by a sculpture of twisted steel. "Just waiting to see who you devour first," I replied sweetly. He laughed, actual amusement cracking through his frost. "You're more dangerous than you look." "I'm exactly as dangerous as I look." He leaned down then, as if to whisper something obscene. "Good, you'll need that." Across the room, I spotted them, the execs from Langford Holdings, the same company that tried to bury my father's firm last year. I recognized their smirks, their vodka habits, their weaknesses. And one of them was walking toward me. "Mrs. Wolfe," the man drawled, "didn't expect to see you married, or married to him." Grayson didn't flinch. I did. "I go by Scarlett," I said calmly, "and some mistakes come wrapped in diamonds." The man laughed, thinking I'd insulted my husband, but I saw the flicker in Grayson's jaw. I had wounded his ego. "Good. You always did know how to pick them," the man added, clearly drunk. Before I could respond, Grayson stepped forward. "Careful," he said, voice quiet but lethal. "You're speaking to my wife." It was the first time he'd said it like that. Not a contract, not a weapon, but something almost real. The man backed off. I turned to Grayson, stunned. That was unexpected. He looked down at me, something unreadable in his eyes. "No one gets to humiliate you but me." Charming. It wasn't meant to be. That night, back at the penthouse, I stepped out of the dress with silent defiance. He stood at the window again, that same godlike pose, hands in pockets, staring at a city that bowed to him. "You handled yourself well tonight," he said without turning. "I wasn't performing for you." "No," he said, "but you did make them believe." I paused at the doorway to my room. "Grayson?" He finally looked at me. "If this is all a game, what happens when one of us stops playing?" He didn't answer, and I didn't ask again. The silence between us had turned into a routine. We moved through the penthouse like ghosts, passing each other in tailored suits and stolen glances. He read the financial pages at breakfast. I read between the lines. Every morning, he brewed my coffee exactly how I liked it. Black, no sugar, like him. We never talked about the marriage. We never talked about the kiss that hadn't happened in the elevator 2 nights ago, the one that hung in the air like smoke. Until the papers arrived. I opened the manila envelope expecting charity gala invites or donation requests. Instead, I found documents. Detailed, time-stamped photos, screenshots of internal memos, evidence of someone inside Wolfe Industries leaking information to Langford Holdings. And my name was on one of the email chains. "What the hell is this?" I hissed, storming into his office. Grayson didn't even flinch. He closed his laptop slowly, then looked up at me with that infuriating calm. "You tell me. You think I'm the leak? Your father's company is still bleeding. Langford stands to gain the most from my downfall. You're the common link." I threw the folder on his desk. "I gave up everything to protect my family, and I sure as hell didn't marry you just to burn you down." He stood. "Didn't you?" The accusation sliced through me. There was a moment, just one, where I saw something shift in his face. A flicker of doubt, or maybe guilt. "Where did you get these?" I asked. He hesitated. "They were sent anonymously." "So you believed them?" "I believed the risk." I laughed bitterly. The man who rewrote a marriage contract without my consent is now playing the moral card? His jaw tightened. "I don't need your innocence. I need your loyalty. Then stop testing me." We stood on opposite sides of his desk, 2 people holding matches over gasoline. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I wanted to trust you, Scarlett. Not I do, not I will, I wanted." And somehow that stung more than the accusation. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I wandered into the study at 2 a.m., barefoot in silk, scrolling through documents and cross-referencing the leak. I didn't owe Grayson my devotion, but I did want the truth. That's when I found it. A single line in a metadata file, traced back not to me, not to Langford, but to someone inside Grayson's own legal team. And just like that, the pieces began to fall into place. The next morning, I dropped the file on his breakfast plate. "Your leak," I said, "was never me." Grayson looked at the folder, then at me. There was something different in his eyes now, not coldness, not suspicion, but something closer to respect. "I misjudged you," he admitted. "No," I said, "you underestimated me." And for the first time since this twisted union began, we stood on equal ground. But beneath that fragile peace, something else stirred, something neither of us wanted to name. Not yet. 3 days passed. Grayson didn't bring up the leak again. He didn't apologize, he didn't offer explanations, but something had shifted. He came home earlier. He stopped calling me Scarlet like it was a weapon. And one night, he brought me tea. I didn't drink it, but I let him leave it on my nightstand. The rainstorm. The penthouse had floor-to-ceiling windows, and when the storm rolled in from the bay, the lightning lit up the whole skyline like paparazzi flashbulbs. I found him there, standing barefoot in the living room, shirt unbuttoned, staring out into the downpour. "You always brood this dramatically?" I asked from behind him. He didn't turn, only when it rains. I stepped closer, the hem of my silk robe brushing the hardwood. "Let me guess, thunder reminds you of your tragic childhood?" He finally looked at me, his face half-shadowed. "You think I'm one of those men, don't you?" I raised an eyebrow. "One of what?" "The broken ones, the ones who pull women in with silence and pain and then ruin them." I didn't answer, because he wasn't wrong. "You've barely spoken to me since the leak," he said. "You didn't exactly earn conversation." He moved closer. "And what about trust? Have I earned that?" My breath caught, not because of the question, but because of the way he was looking at me, like he wanted to read every part of me he hadn't touched. "I don't trust easily," I whispered. "I don't ask for easy." Then he reached out, not for my waist or my wrist, but for the folded file in my hand. I stepped back. "This," I said, holding it between us, "is your brother's signature." His face went still. "I know you've been hiding something, and I think this is the start of it." He looked at the file, then at me. "You went through my private records? You threatened mine." A long silence stretched between us, broken only by the thunder outside. Then he smiled, the first genuine one I'd seen. "You're not afraid of me," he said. "No," I replied, "but you are afraid of me." And he didn't deny it. Later that night, I stayed awake replaying everything. The look in his eyes, the way he didn't flinch when I confronted him, the way his gaze lingered just a second too long when he left the room. We were circling something dangerous. And the more I learned about his secrets, the more I wanted to keep mine buried. Because if I told him why I really signed that contract, this fragile truce would shatter, and the war between us would begin. It was a Tuesday when everything almost changed. I was in his study, combing through old financial reports. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I didn't trust what he kept quiet. There was always something more beneath his perfect signatures and legal footnotes. He didn't run a billion-dollar empire by being transparent. That's when I found the photograph. Tucked into the back of a drawer, a woman, blonde, elegant, standing beside a younger Grayson. And written on the back, "For when you forget why you build walls." I stared at it for a long time. Not with jealousy, with recognition. He hadn't just learned to lock people out, he'd mastered it. That evening, the storm hadn't stopped since morning. When he came home, soaked through and silent, he didn't ask what I'd found. He poured himself a drink, then one for me, held it out like a peace treaty. "You know," I said, "if you ever told the truth, the world might not end." He took a sip. "If I told the truth, you'd leave." "Maybe," I said, "but maybe I'd understand." That silenced him more than the thunder outside. The power flickers. At exactly 9:14 p.m., the penthouse lights flickered and died. A power outage. I reached for my phone's flashlight, but before I could switch it on, I felt him near me. The warmth of his breath, the rustle of his shirt, the smell of rain and cologne. "Don't move," he murmured. "I'm not afraid of the dark." "You should be," he said quietly. "It's where I live." I turned towards his voice. "Then maybe it's time someone dragged you out of it." And in that moment, blind, breathless, I could feel him watching me. Not as an enemy, not as a contract, as something else entirely. Minutes later, the backup generator buzzed and soft light returned to the room. I blinked. He was already gone. Only the empty glass remained. Midnight. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart too loud, too aware. The walls between us were still there, but they were thinner now, cracked. Not from force, but from the unbearable pressure of not knowing. Who he'd lost, what he'd built to bury it, and what would happen when my truth collided with his. Because mine was coming. And when it did, this fake marriage, this fortress of lies, might not survive it. I didn't plan to see him that night, but the city had other ideas. A last-minute fundraiser for a children's hospital. Grayson's PR team insisted on a couple appearance. The car picked me up at 6. The dress they sent was crimson satin, backless, dangerous. Symbolism, I muttered. The ride was silent until he stepped into the car beside me. Black suit, no tie, sleeves rolled just enough to show the veins in his forearms. "You look lethal," he said. "You look like a man who expects gratitude." He smirked. Gratitude would be nice. Loyalty would be better. I turned away, lips tight. Funny, I said the same thing to a man once. He married someone else. Grayson didn't respond. But he didn't look away either. At the event, we walked in together, all smiles, all secrets. Reporters shouted our names, asked for kisses, for eye contact, for confessions. Grayson played the role, so did I. But underneath it, I could feel it, the tension pulling like silk between us. A thread neither of us dared cut. During dinner, his fingers brushed mine once. I didn't flinch. He leaned in. "Why do you always act like you don't want this?" I met his gaze. "Because I don't know what this is." For a second, just one, the armor in his eyes cracked. Neither do I. The balcony. After dessert, I stepped outside. Cool air, moonlight, the soft hum of city life below. I needed space from the heat building in my chest. And then he followed. He said nothing at first, just leaned against the railing beside me. We were inches apart, strangers married by ink, enemies tethered by silence. "I wasn't supposed to like you," he said suddenly. I turned. "Who said you do?" "I didn't," he said, not out loud. The space between us vanished. His hand grazed my waist. My breath caught. He leaned in, not all the way, but close enough that I could smell the bourbon on his breath. "Tell me to stop." I didn't. I couldn't. But just as his lips grazed mine, I stepped back. Not because I didn't want him. Because I did. Too much. "This wasn't part of the contract," I whispered. Then maybe the contract was wrong. Back at the penthouse. We said nothing the whole ride home, but the air was charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. As I walked toward my room, he caught my wrist. "Scarlett." I froze. His voice was low. "Whatever this is becoming, it's not fake anymore." I turned my head slightly, but didn't face him. "I know," I said. "That's what scares me." The morning after the gala, I found a gift box outside my bedroom door. No note, just black velvet and the unmistakable scent of cedar. I ran my fingers over it slowly, heart thudding. It was beautiful. It was intimate. It was him. In the kitchen. Grayson was already there, coffee in hand, shirt sleeves rolled, reading the news like he hadn't just upended my sanity. "You left something at my door," I said. He didn't look up. I leave a lot of things at doors, not all of them open. I stepped closer. "Is that how this works now? Jewelry for silence?" Now he met my eyes. It wasn't a bribe. Then what was it? "A thank you," he said quietly, "for not walking away." That stopped me. Because truth be told, I almost had. The elevator. Later that day, we rode the elevator down together. I pressed the button for the parking garage. He didn't press anything, just stood beside me, too close. The silence between us wasn't cold anymore. It was heat, slow, smoldering, the kind that made breathing difficult. "You're wearing the necklace," he said. "I wasn't planning to, but you did." His voice was low, rough, dangerous in a different way than before. Then the lights flickered again, another power surge, and for a single breathless moment in the dim, he reached out and traced the chain around my neck. His fingers brushed my collarbone. I shivered, not from fear, from the unbearable pressure of holding back. The garage. We stepped out into the underground lot, and that's when I saw him. Him. My ex-fiancé, Logan, standing beside his car, smiling like sin. "Well," Logan said, eyes flicking to Grayson, "looks like the rumors are true. You did marry the enemy." Grayson's posture stiffened beside me. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His presence was lethal. But I stepped forward first. "Logan," I said coolly, "still crashing parties you're not invited to?" "Just delivering a message," he said, pulling an envelope from his coat. "Your father's estate is under investigation. Thought you'd want to know." I didn't take it. Grayson did. Without a word, he tore it in half, dropped it to the floor, and stepped on it. "Next time," he said, voice like gravel, "you come near my wife, you won't walk away with just words." Back upstairs. The moment the door closed behind us, I turned. What was that? Grayson tossed his keys to the table. Protection. I can protect myself. "I know," he said, "but that doesn't mean I want to watch you bleed." He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat rolling off him. And then his fingers gently touched the necklace again. I murmured, "I bought this because it's unbreakable. Like you." I didn't speak to Grayson for 2 days, not because I was angry, because I was terrified of what silence might turn into. The dinner. It was a quiet Thursday night when he asked me to dinner. Not at a restaurant, not for show, just the two of us. "I cooked," he said. I blanked. "You, me?" He shrugged. "I used to, before my life was signed in ink." There were candles, real ones, not just the LED kind the staff usually lit for events. He'd burned one end of the chicken and the salad was overdressed, but I couldn't stop staring at the effort. It was human, unexpected. He poured wine, clinked his glass to mine. "To temporary things that last longer than expected," he said. I almost laughed. "Like us?" "Exactly like us." The conversation. Over dessert, I asked him the question I'd been choking on for weeks. "Why did you want me?" He didn't flinch, didn't lie. "Because you were clean, untouched by scandal, independent, beautiful, and you'd make people believe I had a soul." I nodded slowly. "And now?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Now I wonder how I lived without you under my roof." The kiss. It happened in the hallway. No music, no grand lead-up, just tension that broke like lightning. He reached for me. I didn't pull away. His mouth found mine, demanding, controlled, but trembling underneath. And I kissed him back. Not because I forgave him, because I wanted him, because he made me feel wanted. His hand slid to my waist, then up my back, pressing me closer. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for weeks. He lifted me effortlessly, and suddenly my back was against the wall, legs wrapped around him, heat blazing between us. But then, I pulled away, breathless. "We can't," I whispered. "We already are," he replied. After. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of what almost happened, but because of what didn't. Because when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a woman pretending anymore. I saw someone falling, hard, for a man I couldn't trust. A man with secrets stacked higher than his empire. A man whose name wasn't even on the contract I signed. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. No signature, just 3 words. He isn't yours. The paper smelled faintly of jasmine. I stared at it for a long time, my pulse roaring in my ears. It could have meant a dozen things, but in this world, in his world, it meant war. The confrontation. I stormed into Grayson's office. He didn't look surprised to see me. "I got a letter," I said. "Blackmail? Worse, truth." I dropped it on his desk. He picked it up slowly, read it, and didn't even blink. "You think this is about me?" "I know it is." He stood, crossed to the window. "You think I lied to you? You think you didn't?" His jaw tightened. "What do you think I've been lying about? About the contract, about who you really are?" He turned to face me then, cold but not cruel. "What if I told you I'm not who signed the papers?" Silence. "Excuse me," I whispered. "I didn't want this marriage. My father did. He forged the signature, pushed it through legal loopholes. By the time I knew, the media had already made it real." I stared at him. "And you just let it happen?" "I was going to end it. Then I met you." A beat of truth. Everything in me wanted to scream, to run. But instead, I asked the question I wasn't ready for. Was any of it real? His voice dropped. "You were." The letter again. That night, I read the letter a second time. Not because I needed answers, but because I needed to remember how deep the game went. Whoever wrote it knew something. Maybe everything. Flashback. The next day, I went to the storage unit I hadn't touched in years. My father's papers, his estate files. I dug through them for hours until I found it. A check. Issued by the Blackwood Foundation, years ago. Made out to me. The final scene. When I returned to the penthouse, Grayson was waiting. He raised a brow. And? It wasn't a threat, I said. It was a warning. He stepped closer. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. This wasn't just a marriage built on lies. It was a marriage born from them. I couldn't sleep. The check haunted me. Issued years before the contract. Signed by Grayson's father. Addressed to me. But I'd never seen it before. So I did what I always did when truth felt too big. I ran. The cemetery. I found myself standing before my father's grave at sunrise. A bouquet in one hand, betrayal in the other. "You knew," I whispered, "didn't you?" The wind didn't answer, but I could feel it. The ache in my chest wasn't just grief, it was recognition. This marriage wasn't random. It had roots, twisted ones. Grayson follows. I heard the car before I saw him. Grayson stepped out slowly. No suit today, just jeans, boots, and a leather jacket that made him look like trouble. The good kind, the worst kind. "I thought you might come here," he said. I didn't turn. "Did you know about the check?" I asked. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know it mattered," he said, "until now." A shared scar. We sat on a bench in silence. 2 orphans of legacy. "My father wanted to control everything," he finally said, "even my wife. And mine was in debt to yours. Maybe they built this marriage," he said, "but we're the ones bleeding in it." I looked at him. He looked tired, real, like a man finally ready to burn the contract and write his own terms. The confession. "I don't hate you," I said. He blinked. "I want to," I continued, "but I don't." He didn't move, just studied me with those storm-gray eyes, searching for the edge between honesty and hope. "I don't hate you either," he whispered. Then he reached out, fingers brushing mine. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't a claim. It was something else. Raw, unsure, real. Later that night, back in the penthouse, I sat on the bed with the check between my fingers. My heart beat slower now. Not because I had answers, but because I had questions that someone finally wanted to ask with me. Together. Grayson walked in, wordless. He didn't touch me, didn't ask to stay. He just sat on the floor beside my bed, back against the wall, head tilted back, watching the ceiling, guarding my silence. Grayson was gone when I woke up, just like the first time I ever saw him, just like the first time I didn't know who he really was. A knock on the door. I thought it would be housekeeping. It wasn't. It was her, Jocelyn Blackwood, his stepmother. Hair sharp as glass, lips painted red like a threat. She didn't wait to be invited in, just walked past me and said, "You were never part of the plan." The ultimatum. She dropped a folder on the kitchen island. Inside, bank records, press leaks, court documents I hadn't seen before. "You signed this annulment quietly," Jocelyn said, "and the world never sees what your father did to cover your family's debts. And if I don't?" She smiled, cold, controlled. "Then you become another broken wife in a broken empire." Grayson returns. He walked in mid-threat, didn't say a word, didn't flinch, just placed himself between me and her. "Leave," he said. "You're making a mistake." "No," he said. "I'm married one. I'm not repeating it." Jocelyn's glare shifted to me. "You really think he'll protect you? You're just another girl to him, disposable." But something in Grayson's eyes said otherwise. After she left, he didn't speak for a while, just stared out at the skyline. I finally said, "She's trying to destroy you," I said. He turned. "No, she's trying to break you. She already gave up on me." The fire. That night, the fireplace was the only light in the room. We didn't sit far apart anymore. He poured bourbon, handed me a glass, sat across from me on the rug. "You scare me," I said softly. He didn't blink. "Because I hurt you?" "No," I said, "because you could be the one who heals me too." The almost kiss. He leaned forward, close, so close I could taste the storm on his breath. But neither of us moved that final inch. We just sat there, trembling, stuck between the past and something that might save us or destroy us. The meeting. Grayson had a plan, and for once, he told me everything. "There's a clause in the marriage contract," he said, "buried deep. If either party is proven to have been coerced or misrepresented, the marriage becomes null, and everything reverts to the Blackwood estate." "You want out?" I asked. He looked at me like I was the only thing real in his world. "I want you, not a clause." The enemy revealed. We met with his legal team, with the board, with the ghosts of our fathers still echoing in every clause. And then the final bombshell dropped. My mother had co-signed the original contract. She hadn't died broke. She died bought. The fight. That night I screamed at Grayson. "You knew. You had to know." "I didn't," he shouted back. "You lie so easily now. Because the truth hurts more." The glass in my hand shattered. So did something in me. The flashback. Later in the dark, I remembered the day I almost didn't go to the courthouse, the day I almost backed out, and how the envelope of money appeared like magic on our kitchen table. Blood money. My inheritance. My chain. The storm. Thunder cracked outside the penthouse. Grayson stood at the window again, always running to heights when things got heavy. "I'm not your father," he said softly. "No," I replied, "you're worse, because I let you in." The apology. Hours passed. I found him still at the window, rain on the glass, bourbon in his hand. "You scare me too," he said, "because you could have been my freedom, and I made you my punishment instead." The decision. I packed a bag, not because I wanted to leave, but because I wanted him to stop me. He didn't, not yet. But as I reached the door, his voice broke. "If you walk away now, I'll let you go." Silence. Then, But if you stay, I'll fight for us, even if it kills everything else. The morning after, I didn't sleep. I watched the skyline shift from black to lavender through a hotel window. Not our penthouse, not his building. Just a place I found after walking until my heels broke. And still, I felt him everywhere. In the silence, in the way the air still smelled like him, in the ache behind my ribs. A visitor. A soft knock on the hotel door. I opened it slowly, half hoping, half dreading. It wasn't Grayson. It was Monica, the last friend I hadn't lost. She didn't speak, just held out an envelope. From him. Inside, not a contract, not a letter, but a photograph. Us. Taken the first week of the marriage. I wasn't looking at the camera. I was looking at him. And he was already falling. The rooftop. Later that night, I went back to the rooftop of our building. I didn't call. I didn't knock. He was there, as if he knew, wearing the same suit he wore the day we married, looking wrecked, looking real. The vow. I never said the words, he said softly. What words? The only ones that matter. He stepped toward me, and then, voice rough with everything we'd survived, I vow to never lie to you again. I vow to love you the way no contract ever could. And I vow to fight for you, even when I'm the reason you want to run. I stared at him. My throat burned. Grayson, he took my hand. I know it wasn't real before, but if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life making it real now. The kiss. No crowd, no press, just sky and skin, and a kiss that felt like forgiveness and fury and freedom all in one. It wasn't perfect. It was better. It was ours. Epilogue. 3 months later, no contracts, no threats, just one small courthouse, and 2 people who finally understood that love doesn't begin with paper. It begins the moment you choose to stay when you had every reason to go.